what we're going to do is go back. So, can you name that 1993 R&B track opening statement? What is the name of the song? What's the name of the duo that came up with it? Maybe you know, maybe you don't, but we are going to go back to the interview with 49 SAF Advisory Committee members Rick Nerland and Steve Trimble. And this part of the interview, part number 2, is really sort of all about the 49 SAF. It's about Alaska's entrepreneurial ecosystem. To some extent, it's about the changes we'd like to see in it. And we cover a lot of ground. We talk about the need for mentors and advisory board members for young companies, why we don't see that really happening a lot in Alaska. We talk about the different things we'd like to see change in Alaska's entrepreneurial ecosystem. Rick goes out on a limb, talks about how we need to put real money behind it. There's a lot of volunteers working really hard right now, and it's pretty challenging to do that. Steve talks about why we go with a fund-to-funds approach rather than make our own investments. And somebody even says that there might be some partners missing at the table of this conversation. Bravery, here we go. 49 SAF, let's go back. Rick, tell me about your original experience, 2012 to 2014 with 49 SAF. And kind of what you thought along those years. And then we'll go to Steve from 2016 to 2017 now.
Okay. I was approached by Lucinda Mahoney, the CFO of the municipality, and she and Ellen Johnston had found this program that the state of Alaska passed on, and the municipality made some inquiries, found out they could apply, and they applied, and they were accepted. And all of a sudden, we had a tranche of U.S. Treasury money to encourage entrepreneurs and venture capitalists with the purpose of growing jobs in Alaska, and specifically in Anchorage. And so an advisory group was formed, and the advisory group reviewed proposals for the deployment of this capital. And Joe did a marvelous job of herding all the cats that were involved to put a bunch of proposals in front of us. And we eventually came down to funding some venture capital funds rather than do a lot of direct investments. And that's what we have today, is a group of 4 venture capital funds to which we contribute. The 49 State Angel Fund contributes up to 50% of their investable dollars.
Right. So, Steve, you came on board in 2016.
Yep.
Rick's going to earn the badge of honor. There are a couple valorous long-term members, but you're one of the newer members of the advisory committee. Tell us about how you came on board and what your experience has been.
Yeah, Joe, thinking back to part 1 of the podcast when you asked, how long have you been on the 49 SAF advisory board? And I said, well, April 2016. I remembered the exact day because it was the day my second son was born. I was literally at Providence Hospital when Suzanne in the mayor's office called me and said, hey, can you, there's a couple openings on this committee. Can you serve on it?
I kind of feel like I should make this work if it's associated with your son's birth.
No pressure, Joe. No pressure.
Well, whatever. It's 5 years. Here we go. But all right, Steve.
Yeah, I had forgotten about that. But yeah, it was that day. I was downstairs getting a little reprieve, eating at the Subway in Providence Hospital, and that's when I got the call. So of course, incredibly thrilled at the opportunity to help any way I can. Had very little knowledge of the fund prior. I knew it existed. I know had seen some activity and then hadn't heard much about it from a little while. So I was really eager to get in and have the opportunity to learn not only about the process and participating in the ecosystem in another meaningful way, but also the body of knowledge that the board consists of. It's amazing. It's the members have decades of experience to draw from. So, and, always an opportunity for personal growth in addition to lending a hand. So, jumped in. The mayor was ready to kind of hit the reset button and get aggressive. Shortly after, Joe, you came back for your second stint, round 2, and then we were really off to the races. So it's been great to see an acceleration in deployment from the partner funds, which is really exciting. But also this kind of great budding ecosystem we have forming around this. Just a couple of weeks ago, completed a successful Startup Week conference. That's awesome to see. It was a room of 150 people. 2-3 years ago, that was an empty room. So we've made really great progress, and it's really personally rewarding to be a part of it. And most of the time, I do a lot of listening because I always learn a lot in our meetings as well.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that was interesting from Startup Week, and we got really good feedback on the 4 events that we held. One of them being Rethink Startup, which was a day-long conference, and I think we'll revisit that next year. I think it has real potential to be a thought leadership conference. One of the things that you did was you hosted a reverse pitch session, and if you think about it, there were like 8 or 9 entrepreneurial educators in the room, 2 universities, 1 accelerator, 1 idea competition, 1 business plan competition in Southeast, 1 small business development center, and the list goes on and on. Mm-hmm. So there's ways to get this sort of education. Did you have any takeaways from that pitch session?
Yeah, well, the major takeaway for me was that there's all of these great resources available for entrepreneurs and potential entrepreneurs that they just want to help. They just want to see the economy grow in Alaska, new businesses start, and that's an incredible resource for people. I think one of the biggest kind of unspoken components of an entrepreneur's process is just fear to ask questions, and fear to just not be afraid to admit you don't know it all. And so, I think the more we give people venues to be comfortable in that space and learn that not only is it acceptable to ask for help, but you should be encouraged to do so, and there's great resources for that, then I think, we're going to see a lot of really good things come out of that.
Rick, do you think fear to ask questions is lethal for an entrepreneur?
Absolutely. I mean, you have to put away your pride and be vulnerable in asking what you think is a dumb question, but actually may not be a dumb question, may be the right question. And if it's not the right question, maybe the person you're talking to or the group you're talking to can help you get there. And the value of an ecosystem for entrepreneurs in Anchorage is that there is an opportunity to engage with mentors. And we had a long conversation today at our luncheon about how to encourage our participants in the Launch Alaska program to engage with more mentors, because there's a tremendous amount of resource there and tremendous amount of knowledge, time in the market, and getting those people to see that as a resource is important.
Do you know one thing I don't see? And I don't see companies create advisory boards. I don't see startups go out and chase their own advisory boards. And I wonder why that is. I don't know if it's particular to Alaska. I don't know if it's just sort of particular nationwide. I'm not sure. But, I couldn't. There are days when I look at the stuff we're doing at the fund and I go, I'm going to kick this to committee because I don't have any idea which way to go with this. Now, sometimes I do have an idea, but often I don't. So, what's your take on like people not building an advisory board to give them advice?
Well, it's probably a function of hours in the day. People have other obligations, family, otherwise, and but having said that, I will tell you that in every single year of my career in advertising, I had the benefit of a 3-member board of directors, and they saved my butt numerous times. The advice wasn't always what I wanted to hear, but if I took it, I knew the outcome would be better. And so, a startup company that's got a revenue stream and is showing some, early stage promise, there are lots of mentors that would agree to meet with you on a semi-regular basis to talk about how your business might run better.
Mm-hmm. Joe, I think Rick really hit it on the head when.
Oh, did he hit it on the head when he said your advisory board doesn't tell you what you always want to hear?
That is exactly
says Joe to his 2 advisory board members.
About to say, yeah, absolutely, yep.
No,
yeah.
But seriously, go on.
No, but I mean, who doesn't like to hear what they don't want to hear sometimes, if not most of the time. And I think that's just another fear point. That's another hurdle to overcome, and you just got to do it. Yeah, you got to do it. Like I'm actively recruiting an advisory board right now for Arctic Solar Ventures. And it takes time because you got to find the right pieces. It's almost like when you're building out your company's culture. You have to be like, okay, I want someone that's going to challenge me here. I want someone that maybe has a lot of seasoned expertise. On the whatever you name it, finance side, to really put me to the grill on finances and cash flow management, and bookkeeping and all that. And so you have to be willing to identify your weaknesses, and I think that's not everyone's favorite activity to begin with. So I would call that's like one of your entrepreneurial chores. Like you got to go brush your teeth.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's the mentorship discussion, Rick. Is it prescribed? Do you assign mentors to companies that are young, or is it self-determined? Do companies go out and chase their own mentors? Do you land on a particular side of that?
Well, I think it depends on the company. Some companies are great at utilizing resources. They're great networkers and contact developers. Others aren't so inclined to do that. They're a little more secretive, or I want to say guarded. And those are the companies that really need to examine whether staying siloed in a thought process and in a line of logic is better serving the company rather than getting some expanded point of view. And those are the ones that I think need to force themselves to listen to some other viewpoints.
So I guess one of the questions is, Alaska has sort of a small, I'm not sure if it's fragile. It's probably not fragile. I actually think of it as pretty fragmented and stable at this point, although still small, entrepreneurial ecosystem. But it's quirky. And so I guess one of the things I would ask you is, like, what do you notice about Alaska's entrepreneurial ecosystem that we're helping fund significantly? We're helping fund companies in that ecosystem. We're not necessarily funding platforms. But what do you notice that's kind of different, and what might you change, Steve?
Mm-hmm. I alluded to this a little bit earlier, Joe, but I think it's still a little easy for companies in Alaska to just think that they're in Alaska. and to think that Alaska is just a far off place that's kind of disconnected and not, we kind of are doing our own thing and we have our own area and that's what it is. That's the kiss of death as far as I'm concerned. And I think that can be, addressed in various topics, various areas. We have to think of Alaska as this bigger place, strategically important, part of a larger global economy, and we have to capitalize on that. And we have to have entrepreneurs that are just open to that idea, first of all.
Are you saying we're prone to small town thinking?
I think I am, Joe. Yep, I think I am.
Just checking.
Yep.
Rick, you have observed the entrepreneurial ecosystem for the last 5+ years, really, but 5 with the 49 SAF. If you could change one thing, what would it be?
Well, I changed more than one thing, Joe. First of all, there's been a tremendous amount of progress, but we're not to the point we need to be. First of all, we need more support for the development of the services that these companies are going to need. We need better coordination between the university, our economic development entities and all their different forms, local government, state government. There needs to be a convening of those groups, and there needs to be a common objective, and a plan needs to be laid out that will get us there. Secondly, we need to actively cultivate angel investors. We are not to the point where this is a sustainable model, simply because there's so much volunteer effort going into it right now that I'm not sure that can be sustained. So we need to build this towards, and I believe we can do this, we need to build this towards an economic model where fund managers are compensated, where due diligence is done by the brightest minds that we have in local business here, and that deals that make sense for the funds, for angel investors, for lending institutions get the kind of support that they need.
Wow, that's pretty powerful stuff, Rick. What do you think you've seen change in 5 years? And how has 49 SAF impacted that change?
Well, I think that Steve hit it on the head when he talked about the sessions where they were packed, and there are people that are up there telling their stories and sharing their knowledge and their experiences with other wannabe entrepreneurs. That wasn't taking place 5 years ago. It may have been pocketed here and there, but again, we haven't reached our full potential in marshaling all of the forces for good in this area that exists today. We need to get more involvement from the university, more involvement from the state government, more involvement from the municipality of Anchorage, and more involvement from the investment community.
Yeah, that's a tall order. I would agree that our university, and this is a little, I don't know if it's risky for me, but it's certainly like, if you look at other ecosystems, what's there, what isn't. And I think there is a part of the university that's participating heavily, and the rest of the university that is sort of not. And that is probably something that should be looked at, as should a plan for overall economic growth, whether you think it's going to be entrepreneurship or whether you think it's going to be something else, which I'm not sure what that would be. But that level of participation probably should exist. And it's not just to pick on the university. There's also pretty big missing stakeholder in corporates. And part of that is that, corporates move on from their early stage and they don't remember. But there's also kind of no corporates here, right? I mean, if Cincinnati builds out a startup ecosystem, well, they've got Fortune 100 companies all focused in the consumer goods space that they can rely on. If Anchorage builds up the startup ecosystem, our corporates are, and where are we now economically? It's a tough question to answer.
Right.
Well, diversification is going to be the key to our economic survival. And this is one way to encourage diversification. Certainly there are other regulatory ways. There are lots of ways in terms of incentives. But let's just talk about incentives for a minute. Where's the incentive for starting a business other than looking at long hours, hard work, heartbreak, elation, and going back again and doing it the next day? We need to build some incentives into this process so that people can look at it as as an opportunity rather than just punching a clock.
So one interesting question that I think I'll ask the pair of you is, every now and then somebody calls me up and asks why I don't invest in companies directly. And I explain to them a variety of things, but let's get your take on why our preferred route is to create investment funds that then invest in companies directly, rather than us going in, doing our own due diligence, writing our own deals, and making our own private placements. Why is it that we prefer to have external fund managers?
For me, Joe, capacity building, 100%. The more people that we can recruit to our cause, and our partner funds have stepped up and they've recruited to our cause. We're building capacity not only in those funds to be able to generate new deal flow, but also in areas they may overlap and actually, spur on better deals that way. But it's capacity building through and through. I think that's the key, and I think that's been why we've seen the success that we have with the 49 SAF.
And I would add to that I always remember Tom Fink said, he had so many children, he said, they can only take all your time. And the point is that rather than a central planning entity, the 49 State Angel Fund really serves its purpose best by delegating and distributing to other investors to look at the day-to-day operations of these companies. These companies take a lot of mentoring, a lot of monitoring. Sometimes you have to pull them out of the fire, and get them back on track. And that really isn't. It shouldn't be the job of the city government. It should be a private sector activity. And so by having these funds that match city funds with private investor funds, we've created skin in the game, and they will be willing to give that guidance and provide that due diligence that those companies need.
All right, so final question. I promise, this is it. It is December 31st, 2018, and 49 SAF has had some sort of big success. What is it that we've accomplished that we couldn't have even imagined, Steve?
Let's see. That's I have to imagine it first in order to.
Look, if you need to throw to Rick, go for it.
Yeah, no.
That's the multiple conversations are always more fun.
They always are more fun. Yep, I'm going to imagine on the fly. Absolutely. What I would like to see come out of this is a new industry sector in Alaska that we didn't recognize before it became a big success. I want to see something sprout up and be cultivated in an area that we didn't think we could be competitive. I think that for me, and that can be, whatever. It could be anything from quite honestly, marijuana to, I don't know, you name it.
Well, it could be consumer goods.
It could be consumer goods.
There's a theory that one of the biggest investors in Alaska has, which is that Alaska's brand is so strong, and I think this is true. As Alaskans, we know this. Alaska's brand is so strong that when you tie it to water, food, organic food, anything, it sort of gets this amplifying effect.
Salmon.
Yeah, beer, right?
Oh, yeah. Good.
So, maybe it's that. And it's interesting in that we've sort of kind of had some top-down elements. And I think we've seen people create some decent little consumer goods companies.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, Bambinos, for example, they were on Frontiers this week, and organic product grown in the valley, processed into baby food, and now it's in demand, almost on a worldwide basis. There's a magic to Alaska that speaks to the consumer's perception and our brand as a state, and I think that there are opportunities to take advantage of that. If I imagine our successes at the end of 2018, I would say if we have created a stronger ecosystem, if we have created jobs for Alaskans in a challenging economy and created new businesses that are able to thrive and achieve a sustainability, every dollar will have been well spent, as well as every hour on this committee.
And with those wise words of wisdom, which cannot be topped, we will call it a night from Arctic Solar Ventures head office on what street?
4th and H.
4th and H, right by the
headquarters.
World headquarters, right by the Pioneer Bar, which has nothing to do with this podcast, but is
We're never thirsty around here, Joe.
It is the home bar of West Anchorage High School. God bless it. Go Eagles. This is the 49 SAF pod signing off, where Rick Nerland and Stephen Trimble, advisors to the 49 State Angel Fund on our Mayor's Advisory Committee, argue over who's a better singer, Ashley Tisdale or Carly Rae Jepsen. Joe Morrison, 49 SAF pod signing out. Say goodbye.
See you, Joe.
All right.
Bye, Joe.